1971. Is this the most loaded year ever? Hey guys, welcome to Amity Tracks. We're moving right along into the 70s, 1971, a packed year. This could be the most stacked year ever. I don't know. Let you be the judge. Let's look at what's going on in 1971 around the world and in our culture before we dive into the music here. All in the Family debuts on television, or we're about to have a revolution in television in the 70s. The French Connection wins Best Picture that year. The NASDAQ opens for the first time. And the Ed Sullivan Show closes. the Ed Sullivan Show ends in that year. Jim Morrison also ends. He dies in 1971 in Paris. And Disney World opens to the world in Florida. All right. 1971, the music. Man. Ton of honorable mentions before we even get to my top 10. This time I commit to you, I'm going to try and go through the honorable mentions really quickly. But there's just so much that came out in this year. And I'm going to miss some. So obviously in the comments, you guys set me straight if I leave some stuff out that you think I shouldn't. But here, let's get going. Let's grab my stack here. First stack. Well, I mean, we can start with some former Beatles. John Lennon and Paul McCartney, in my view, put out their finest solo records. McCartney with Ram, which again, one of those records that was kind of bashed critically at the time, but has grown in stature greatly. I mean, people love this record now. I do too. I think it's his finest work outside of the Beatles. And I also feel this is John Lennon's finest work outside of the Beatles. Imagine, of course. I don't know what you need to say about Imagine that you don't already know, but then you got these three guys who, well, I'm going to talk about a joint effort here soon, but solo. Each one of them released some notable things. Talk about Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I guess we'll start here with Stills. Stephen Stills 2, which one of these records that, again, very typical Stills. About half of it is outstanding, and then the other half is filler. It's again, I think this fairly standard with Stills' material, but his two compadres, Graham Nash, I think puts out the finest work of his career. His solo debut, Songs for Beginners, is just outstanding. A lot of people love this record. This record has been discovered, I think by a newer generation. I see a lot of channels with younger people like talking about this record. I mean, I wasn't around when this came out. I was almost around, but but yeah, no, I discovered it a long time ago. Just to me, just one of the finest singer-songwriter records I've ever heard. And then David Crosby puts out "If I Could Only Remember My Name," an apt title with a pretty amazing lineup of guests here. This is an amazing record. He just kind of remastered and reissued this. I think it was this year, last year. I bought the CD version because I just wanted the extra disc of outtakes and stuff. But I mean, this is incredible. There's really not much that sounds like this. It is so spacey, so stoned, just kind of this spaced out. I mean, minor masterpiece. I mean, seriously. And here's the thing: I'm going to be talking a lot about a lot of these great records this year. I mean, this is such a strong year. So many of these honorable mentions would easily make a top 10 in a weaker year. So, I mean, don't just because I got them in the honorable mention, don't take that to mean that they're really lesser albums. We're talking about just what stuff I like the most, right? Now, you guys know from previous episodes, I am into Miles Davis's fusion era quite a bit. So he puts out a tribute to Jack Johnson this year. To me, his most rock record. That first track, there's only 2 tracks, right? One on each side. But right off, it's the side 1 track. It's just, to me, I mean, the most straight ahead rock song. I mean, although it's, 20 whatever minutes, but but just straight ahead rock songs he ever did. I mean, this is awesome. Sticking with the fusion thing, you also get the debut from the Mahavishnu Orchestra featuring John McLaughlin on some incredible guitar work. The Inner Mounting Flame, in the name of the album. And again, on the fusion side, to me, this leans, it's got jazz chops, but it definitely leans to rock and roll. I mean, it's just raw. It's really heavy stuff. This one showed up on, I don't know if you've been watching my videos from the beginning, one of the second video I put out was albums I'm supposed to love, but I don't. This was in that video, and I talked a little bit about it, but I mean, you have to note it in this year. I mean, obviously Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, which, like I said in that video, if you hadn't seen it, I mean, I love half of this. I just can't get into the other half. I know it's supposed to flow together as one piece, but I can pick out about half of these songs, and which I just adore, but the others I don't. Jack Bruce, formerly of Cream, keeps going here with his previous solo album. I put whatever year that was, but he just keeps going with amazing stuff. Kind of continuing with some of those complex, writing and musical ideas. Just awesome. Harmony Row is the name of the album. Janis Joplin, if you remember last year's video, I mentioned that she died in 1970, but she had almost completed what was supposed to be her next album, which we know as Pearl. They just needed a few little finishing touches, so they did finish it up and then released it. And a fine epitaph, sadly, for this one-of-a-kind artist. Yes, puts out Fragile. One of the landmarks of progressive rock. Fragile. Okay, next stack here. We're still in the honorable mentions. I am trying to go quick, though. I did mention in our little news recap at the beginning of this video that Jim Morrison left us in this year. And so the Doors do put out their final record with Jim Morrison. There's Jim right there. This came out a few months prior to his death. And I know they did put out 2 more records after his demise. But many Doors fans, including myself, I don't really consider those actual Doors records. I mean, this is the final Doors record as we know it. Just awesome, though. I mean, continuing the greatness of Morrison Hotel, which was on, in my top 10 of that year, and this just continues that. I mean, Morrison Hotel and L.A. Woman were really pointing into a new direction that I think the Doors could have sustained for a long time if Morrison had stuck around. The Faces. A nod is as good as a wink to a blind horse. This is, of course, I've mentioned the Small Faces before, but they evolved into the Faces. Steve Marriott leaving and Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood coming in, making it more of kind of a classic rock type album or type band. This, of course, has Stay With Me, one of, Rod Stewart's all-time greats with any combination. Although my favorite song on here is Debris. I think Ronnie Lane was an underrated singer, songwriter, and Debris is just a gorgeous song from Ronnie Lane that's on here. That's my favorite tune on here. You get the debut from Crazy Horse, entitled Crazy Horse. Of course, best known as Neil Young's Sometimes backing band. But they did put out some stuff on their own. And as far as all the stuff I've heard, this is by far their finest record. And it's of course that original lineup with Danny Whitten in there. Jack Nietzsche's on here. I think Neil does show up on. Nils Lofgren plays on here. So yeah, this is just this is this is awesome. I mean, just really gritty, just great rock and roll. Kind of in the style of Crazy Horse, but gives someone like Danny Whitten, who was kind of their natural leader when Neil wasn't in the picture, really a place to shine before his untimely demise. Um, J.J. Cale, naturally. I really dig J.J. Cale. It's kind of that laid back, but man, he was a fantastic guitar player too. I mean, great songwriter. You're probably familiar with a lot of his songs because they were hits for other people. It was hardly ever that Cale's version of his own songs was the big hit, but Leonard Skinner. Just looking at the track listing on this one, right? Leonard Skinner did "Call Me the Breeze." Eric Clapton, of course, with "After Midnight." But yeah, I really dig Cale's original versions too. Real laid back, but good stuff. Man, Gene Clark, entitled Gene Clark, or sometimes entitled White Light. Either way, um, love that. Love that cover. It's so cool. It's that Clark silhouette in the sun there. Gorgeous record, kind of a heavy acoustic, heavy on the acoustic, but he's got a band with him, and just the Virgin with Tomorrow, Spanish guitar, and just great songwriting on here from Gene Clark. He does a great cover of Tears of Rage too. Yeah, Gene Clark of the Byrds. He had, of course, left the Byrds and had a criminally underrated, or at least unappreciated, solo career, and this is one of his great records. Let me save this one for last. Let's see. I've got Traffic here with Low Spark of High Heeled Boys. Brilliant kind of jazz elements here, especially that title track. There's that line up there, Steve Winwood, right there. I'm actually about to soon record a Traffic video, which I'll speak of this at length. So I'll save that for that video. Santana puts out Santana 3. One of my favorites of that band. I'm sorry. There we go. There's the right way up. Kind of hard to tell. Notable because this is the album where Neil Schon comes on board. Neil Schon of Journey fame, right? It'll be the album after that, the record after this, where Neil Schon and Greg Rowley of Santana will both split and then form Journey, of course. All right. This band has been on a streak for a while, although for me, it's about to end for a little while. But this one is great. The Kinks, Muswell Hillbillies, hanging out in the pub. There's the pub. Real kind of American sounding record. They kind of have some country elements, some folk, a lot of acoustics in there, but typically great incisive songwriting from Ray Davis. Which one? I'll talk about both of these. Let me mention this one here. Link Ray, self-titled. This is a brilliant DIY lo-fi Americana. It's just masterpiece. I'm going to put a video together that I've been thinking about, kind of a video featuring maybe some sort of off the beaten path, maybe some albums that you might not have heard of. And I'm going to feature this on that video. So I'll talk about this on that video. I was planning on it, but it's just, DIY Americana, just of the highest form. God, this is good. And, if all you know are those great, instrumental rock class, guitar classics from the late 50s and early 60s from Link Ray, it's a whole different deal. So good, though. And then finally, in my honorable mention, just barely missed my list. Man, I really want to put this on the list, but I can't. Got the Beach Boys with Surf's Up. Now, this is this little insert here. The Beach Boys have been putting out these really great kind of reissues. This is called Feel Flow's double album, and it's got all the Sunflower and Surf's Up sessions on there. And so this is the version that I have Surfs Up. But it's nice that they have these inserts in here with the original album art. So there's the original album cover of Surfs Up. I mean, just genius, absolute. Well, here, I should hold that up if I'm going to talk about it. I mean, just genius. I mean, Feel Flows is Carl Wilson. Carl Wilson is really coming into his own as a songwriter. But man, that title track, which was one of the pieces that was intended for Smile, of course, is just stunning. I mean, it shows what Smile could have been if they had gotten it all together. Right? So Surfs Up, I love Surfs Up. Well, here we are. Let's get to the top 10 here. Go through this kind of quick because some of these albums I've actually talked about in previous videos. So I'll mention that, including this one at number 10. Actually, a recent video when I did the double live video. This was featured in there. But Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, A Four-Way Street. This album has just had a huge impact on me personally. I mean, just as a music fan. There's Neil there in the corner. And it's really interesting because objectively, I know it's flawed. I mean, the Electric album has it's very flawed. But for me, it's that acoustic record just had a massive impact on me. I mean, that was what really got me into loving this band. I had heard other stuff, but for some reason, it was that acoustic record that just when I was younger, I played that over and over and over again. Like I mentioned in the double album video, what I find cool about that acoustic record is they're not really singing together a lot. I mean, each one of them kind of gets a couple songs where it's pretty much like a solo spot, or maybe one other guy's backing them up or something. But which I loved because it really showcased each distinct musical personality so well, over the course of one record. All right, number 9. This guy's been on a great streak during this period and will continue for a little while. I got Elton John's Madman Across the Water. Now, this was reissued, I know, this year earlier in some deluxe sets. I'd like to get. I hadn't bought them. I mean, my original copy's still in great shape, so I wasn't in a huge rush to go grab it. But I should because I love this record and all the bonus stuff. I imagine would be great on that. Maybe grab it on CD. I probably don't need another vinyl copy, but this is one of those records where it's like the perfect sides. I'll probably do a great video on the perfect sides. But side 1 of Madman Across the Water is perfection. I mean, Tiny Dancer, Leave On, Razorface, Madman Across the Water. I mean, you don't get any better than that. I mean, it's just brilliant. Side 2 is really good too, but it's just side 1 is just transcendently great. Number 8. I mean, I don't know. What do I say? Led Zeppelin 4. I mean, yeah. Okay. number 7. I mean, what do you say about Led Zeppelin 4? Right? It hadn't been said a billion times. Number 7. Pink Floyd's Metal. I love, love, love this record. Now, this is, very soon before they kind of go up into the stratosphere with Dark Side of the Moon, and then, the series of records that came after. But this really tees it up. I mean, this kind of gets set up for Dark Side, and the side-long song Echoes is just brilliant. I mean, maybe my favorite Pink Floyd song. I don't know if it's fair to call it a song because it's like a whole side of a record, but it is one song. So great. Yeah, I actually have a Pink Floyd video already recorded, kind of in the can. I just, I've recorded stuff ahead of time, so I'm, not sure when I'm going to put that out, but whenever I do talk about this record at some length. So we'll save that discussion for the Pink Floyd video. Let's see. We've got, where are we at? Number 6. In my view, David Bowie's first great record, Hunky Dory. From here on out, for a while, in these year lists, you're going to be seeing some Bowie. Okay, so I hope you like Bowie. But to me, this is the first record that is just greatness in my view. I know some people really like the previous one, but I just think that's so. Man, I love it. This is sort of his acoustic folk record, but it's still like weird Bowie, right? Changes and Life on Mars are the two kind of well-known songs off here, but this whole thing is just start to finish, really. Excuse me. Quicksand, Bewley Brothers, Queen Bitch. That's a great song. Man, this whole thing. It just got a great vibe to it, and he never quite returned to this vibe, at least on a full record again. It was really well done. Interesting little fun fact that I didn't know for a long time till I was reading about it a lot more. Rick Wakeman of Yes plays piano on this. Wakeman's piano is like all over this record. Actually, it's so good. And I don't know. You just don't think Rick Wakeman with David Bowie, but on this one, yeah. Speaking of Wakeman, in the number 5 spot is his band, although Wakeman is not in the band yet on this record. So Wakeman is not on this record, but he does come into this band pretty soon after this. But I am going with the Yes album by Yes. Now there you go. The honorable mention, of course, I already mentioned Fragile. Fragile might be the better known record or more respected in some ways, but sorry, man, I prefer the Yes album. This just a little kind of little. I mean, it's still progressive rock. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, with Yours Is No Disgrace, Starship Trooper, Perpetual Change, but it's also kind of a little more grounded, a little grittier, a little more rock as well. I think it's a I mean, I love the other Yes progressive albums, but I don't know, this just kind of rocks a little harder. Like I said, Rick Wakeman didn't hear yet. He is Tony Kaye is still on keyboards here, but Bill Bruford's here in the picture already, one of the great drummers. Yeah, I mean, Yours Is No Disgrace. I'm always love that song. It's brilliantly put together. And Starship Trooper, especially with Steve Howe's that third part of that song, Worm, man, gets me every time. It's so cool. Alrighty, number 4. Now, number 4, this guy put out a great string of records in this time period. Love them all. I mean, I don't know, count in my head, but 4 or 5 records. He had kind of a pretty great streak. And then I don't know what happened to this guy. I mean, he went on to bigger commercial success, but man, for decades and decades, it's been really sparse for anything really good from this guy, I think. Which is a shame because he so good for a while, for early on. I don't know if I don't know if you figured out who I'm talking about yet. How about Rod Stewart? At number 4 slot, I've got Rod Stewart, Every Picture Tells a Story. Brilliant record. Gritty, rocking. I mean, I can't think of anyone who did it better. Rod Stewart, and of course, Ron Wood plays a huge role in this as well. But who could bring in acoustics, like acoustic guitars, but still rock so hard. I mean, it's a great sound. And he really explored it for a handful of records. I think this is the best of them. That title track, Every Picture Tells a Story. Whenever that comes on, I just crank it. It's so great. Mandolin Wind, Maggie May. I mean, the Reason to Believe, his version of Reason to Believe. I mean, it's all on here. So good. Even I Know I'm Losing You, that Temptation song, I think, is he just rocks that. I mean, this is, I don't know. If all you know of Rod Stewart are all those Do You Think I'm Sexy and all those, albums of lazy standards, go back and check out his early records and start with this one. Brilliant. Brilliant. Just what happened to that guy? I don't know. All right. Top three. Top three for 1971. Two of these three I've already talked about in previous videos that we've posted. So I'm just going to kind of mention them briefly and reference you to those previous videos if you want a longer discussion of them. But I do have at number three one of the great live albums of all time, Allman Brothers at Fillmore East. I mean, again, I put up an Allman Brothers video a while back now where I do discuss this at length. So just one, whipping post in memory of Elizabeth Reed. It's just jazz level chops, but rock and roll, just exploratory brilliance. All right. My number two was also discussed in an earlier video where I have The Who. Who's next? So again, if you want a great detailed discussion of this record, because I spent a little bit of time on this in that video, of course, go check out the Who video. All right. But my number one for 1971. I feel like a broken record here. It's probably not going to be a surprise. For a while now, I have mentioned that I think this band is on the greatest streak in rock history, and they're still continuing it here. They're going to continue it for a little while longer, and then they'll fall back to earth. But they're still in the stratosphere here. Obviously going with the Rolling Stones' Sticky Fingers. Yeah, well, I'm going to take it out of the Sticky Fingers with that iconic album cover designed by Andy Warhol. There's the underwear with the working zipper, right? This isn't there you go. I don't want to do that too much, so I'll break it. There you go. It's rare that I undo the zipper, but I'll do it for you guys. It's the original copy, I believe. This was my sister's, I think. I didn't buy this, but I think she handed it down to me, but I think it's the original. Anyway, a little torn up, but I think that's appropriate for this record, right? You don't want a clean, nice copy of this record. Got to be grit. This record is, I mean, I guess the word I see in a lot of reviews, and I got to agree, weary. I mean, the Stones sound just weary, but not like tired in a bad way, in an uninspired way. They're weary but very inspired. Brown Sugar and Wild Horses, of course, are the two hits off of here, but the whole thing, man, Sway is just great. I don't know why this is sticking with me, but I remember seeing Los Lobos live sometime in the 90s. They did a killer cover of Sway. I remember that was so good. It's so unexpected too, right? It's like you're gonna cover a Stones song. Pick something a little cool like that. Moonlight Mile is just stunningly gorgeous. Dead Flowers is probably to me their greatest attempt at just country song. Sister Morphine is great. For me though, man, the highlight, Can't You Hear Me Knocking? That just rocks so hard. I assume, I haven't checked, but I assume the guitar solo is Mick Taylor. The Stones don't jam a whole lot, but when they do kind of stretch out, they're really good. And Can't You Hear Me Knocking is one of those great songs that where they stretch out, man. And I was like, they should have done more of that, because that just grooves and rocks. So good, so great. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, what do you say about Sticky Fingers? I'll obviously do a Stones video somewhere down the line, but we'll talk again of Sticky Fingers. Well, all right. 1971. It's a huge year. Please do in the comments if I left anything out or you disagree with something. Let me know. Let us know in the comments. Please do subscribe. We really appreciate it if you do. Like the videos if you do like them, and hit the bell if you want notifications and new stuff. We'll see you next time.